Okay, so it looks like it is officially the noon hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's Money Counts webinar on after graduation. Before we get started, we just want to thank you for carving out some time in your day to do a little financial literacy self-care and look ahead towards your financial life after graduation. If you are a student joining during finals week, we really appreciate the time that you're taking to be here with us today. We are going to be discussing all the fun things in your financial life after graduation, including managing your budget, salary negotiation, saving and investing, and of course, paying back those student loans. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute to introduce the team we've got here. My name is Allie Smith. I'm a specialist here at Penn State's Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. I am joined today by Yokaira. She is one of our financial literacy ambassadors, and I'll let her introduce herself here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yokaira Concepcion. I am a financial literacy student ambassador from the Hazleton campus.
Awesome. Thank you. Yokaira is going to be sharing some awesome tips with us today. So we'll be hearing from her a little bit later. Managing our chat today, we have Sarah Metzger. She is also a specialist here at the center. Throughout today's webinar, she'll be putting some helpful links and resources in the chat. So definitely check out those things that she's sharing today. You can ask questions via the chat or through the Q&A feature. Whatever questions aren't answered throughout the presentation, we will address at the end. So just a few housekeeping items to share before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded. In the next few weeks, you'll be able to find this webinar on our financial literacy YouTube page. So stay tuned for that if you want to maybe go back and rewatch this. And also, if you're tuning in from the SMEAL Ethical Leadership Challenge, we do have the QR code for you that will show up at the end of the session today. So today we are talking all about how to prepare ourselves financially from the transition from college student to full-time employee in the workforce. And for those of you who are kind of going through this right now, this is an exciting and potentially nerve-wracking time of transition, right? So no matter if you are a soon-to-be graduate, maybe graduating this weekend, or an eventual graduate graduating in the next few semesters or even years, or even a staff or faculty member, we are glad that you are here today. And I think everyone will have some helpful information that they can learn from today's webinar. So before we really dive into our content today, I'd like to take a minute to highlight some of the free resources that we offer at the center for anyone who might be new to our webinars. All of our resources are aimed at helping you understand and take control of your finances. And all of our resources are completely free to you as a Penn State student. We offer one-on-one financial coaching appointments where you get personalized guidance on your finances. We also have webinars like the one that we're in today, but we also do group presentations for classes and other groups like teams and student groups. We have our self-study modules on Canvas. Those are open to the public and they are self-paced. We've got our mentoring program where current Penn State students have the opportunity to connect with an alumni and be mentored not only through financial subjects and topics, but also some more of those life skills. And our newest offering is our workshops. These are kind of like our presentations, but they are a little bit more hands-on. And again, all of these resources are free. You can get access to all of these things on our website, which is financialliteracy.psu.edu. For those of you who are graduating shortly, who may want or need a little more extra support around your finances before you get on out of here, I would highly recommend making a one-on-one appointment through Starfish to just get some personalized financial guidance. And we do also meet with alumni if you don't get the chance to make an appointment before you graduate. So if you're an alumni and you want to schedule with us, just go ahead and email us at finlit@psu.edu to set something up. The self-study modules are another thing I just want to point out to maybe soon-to-be graduates as a good option. These are a fantastic resource. We have a multitude of different topics available for you to read about on our self-study modules if maybe you are not quite ready to sit down with someone one-on-one. So in this journey from, I want to say student to adult, but you're already adults, right? From student to maybe full-time workforce employee. Through this journey, you'll be making a lot of big decisions, and it's important that you're making these decisions with your own financial well-being in mind, and not just doing whatever you want or doing what everyone else seems to be doing. We want to be making choices that promote our own personal financial well-being. And financial well-being is not just determined by your income or your net worth. The reality is you could be making $200,000 a year. And if you don't have a good grasp on your personal finances, you could be living outside of your means, racking up debt, and exhausting yourself financially. On the other hand, you could be making $50,000 a year and living comfortably within your means. Knowledge is power when it comes to your personal finances. And this presentation is really meant to arm you with some financial literacy knowledge that you can use on your journey into your professional life after graduation. So, we know financial well being is not just about the money that you make. What is it then? In the present, it's having security and freedom of choice. So you're able to take care of your day to day, month to month financial obligations. You're doing things like paying your bills on time and saving responsibly. Not only that, but you also have freedom of choice. So you have the freedom to make choices to do the things that you enjoy in your life. Maybe go out to dinner or happy hour with your friends without stressing about it, or planning to take a trip or a vacation. In the future, this looks like having the capacity to absorb financial shock with an emergency fund, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, and also being on track to meet your future financial goals like retirement. So, my hope for everyone today is that you can learn to manage your finances in a way that lets you not only take care of your financial obligations, save responsibly and pay your bills, but also live a joyful life. Life after graduation is about so much more than work, and managing your money is a huge part of being able to pursue those things that bring you joy outside of work. Before graduation, you do have some loose ends here at the university that need to be tied up. And for anyone tuning in who is graduating this weekend, this may be happening very quickly. Hopefully, you have already done some of these things. The first thing is to make sure that you have checked all requirements in order to graduate. So these would be the overall university requirements, but also your college and your major requirements. It is actually your job as a student to notify the university of your intent to graduate. You will also need to update your forwarding information. So this would include your contact information and your addresses. Your diploma will be mailed, and it will be mailed to the address that the university has on file. This is probably the most important paper you've ever come across in your life, right? And so you want to make sure that diploma is getting to you to where it needs to be. I have kind of a funny story about this. When I moved to my apartment here in State College in 2019, there were two graduate students living in the apartment that I ended up renting. And shortly after moving in, I received one of their diplomas in the mail at my address. And, I reached out to him, and it was a whole thing. It got to him, but don't let that be you, right? Make sure you update your addresses on file so that your diploma comes to you. That is an expensive piece of paper, right? Before graduating is also a great time to get recommendation letters from professors that you have developed good relationships with over the years, or if you worked on campus at any point, even like your supervisors that maybe you worked closely with. It's a great idea to ask for any recommendation letters that you may need now instead of, a few months from now. If you ask for them now, you and your accomplishments are fresh in their mind and they can give you a really great recommendation letter or review. Before you graduate, you'll also need to update your information, not only with the university, but also with any lenders that you've taken student loans out from. They might mail you important information, and you just want to make sure that that information regarding paying back your student loans is sent to you and not to your dorm or your apartment here on campus. One other thing I want to mention here regarding tying up loose ends is that you might have important files in your PSU Outlook suite that you want to download and save and keep for yourself. So Sarah M, I believe she'll be sharing this in the chat if she hasn't already, but she has a great link that she'll share to show when you'll lose access to certain Penn State resources that you had as a student, including your email and your Office 365 apps. So you just want to make sure you're preparing accordingly to lose access to those things, and that you download everything that you're going to need before you lose access to those resources. If your Penn State email acts as your login for certain websites, you'll want to make sure that you go into those websites and change that so you can still log into your accounts. So the first thing that you'll probably want to do with your finances after graduation is to refresh your budget. Our budgets are bound to change after graduation. We'll probably have a bigger income and more expenses. A budget is a fundamental aspect of financial literacy. The point and purpose of having a budget is to help you manage your finances for both financial security and financial freedom. So when you have a good, healthy working budget, you'll have a clear picture of where your money is coming from and where it's going, and maybe what changes need to be made in your financial life, if any. A budget is also a really great planning tool. So whenever you are evaluating different job offers and thinking about living your life in different cities, you're going to want to plan your finances, right? So what we're looking at here is a healthy sample budget. This is a suggested budget based on research from the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And there are a few important things I just want to highlight about this budget. First of all, we see number 2 is housing. Ideally, your housing payment, so your rent or your mortgage, is less than 30% of your monthly net income. And we do know in some cities this just isn't feasible. It's impossible to keep your monthly housing payment under 30% of your monthly income. So if it ends up being more, that's okay. Don't panic. Just know that that extra percentage, whatever it is, needs to come from somewhere else on this pie chart. I also want to highlight that number 7, debt, is 10%. Again, if your student loan payment ends up being more than 10% of your monthly income, pay that. Don't ignore it. But again, just know that that money has to come from somewhere else. So the idea here is that this is flexible. Your budget is not going to look exactly like this. The big idea is that you've only got 100% of your monthly net income to spend. And I say 100%, but actually I think I want to say 90%, because there's one really important thing up here that we don't want to forget about, and that thing is saving. Saving is number 1. And ideally, we're saving at least 10% of our monthly net incomes. When I say saving, saving is not spending or spending less. It's not, oh, I saved 30% on these shoes. That's not saving, right? That's spending less. Saving is intentionally moving money from your checking account into some type of savings or investing vehicle. And we like to call this paying yourself first. And we put it number one on our budget because ideally, whenever we're getting money in, before we're spending money on anything else that we see up here, we should be saving. We should be paying ourselves first. And again, ideally, this is at least 10% of your monthly net income or 10 cents out of every dollar that you make. A first step, a first thing to think about when you're saving your money is to build yourself an emergency fund. If these last few years have shown us anything, it's that we can never predict what's around the corner. And an emergency fund is a great way to prepare for the unexpected and alleviate some of the stress that comes with not knowing exactly what's going to happen next. An emergency fund should be 3 months of your fixed expenses, not 3 months of your income, but 3 months of your expenses. So things that you know, if you were to no longer have an income, that you would still need to pay for. So I'm thinking things like your rent, your student loans, your food, everything that you would need to pay for in order to live your life and not go into default on any of your financial accounts. So this number will actually come directly from your own budget, and that can kind of serve as a savings target for you. If you don't have a budget currently, I would encourage you to start by tracking your spending for a month without judgment, just to see what your current spending habits look like. Some great tools for this are an Excel sheet's a fabulous tool, but if you're not an Excel person, there are websites and apps out there for you. Mint.com is a great one. We also suggest Wally, You Need a Budget, and Good Budget. So after you've tracked your spending for a month with whatever tool you use, check in on that data and start to make tweaks and changes to your spending habits as needed. But before you just go and set up a budget for yourself, it's important to have context first and some kind of insight into what your current spending habits look like. So the connection between our budgeting or our spending targets, like the healthy sample budget that we're looking at, and your actual spending is tracking your spending and checking in on maybe a weekly basis to make sure that your spending is on track with the spending targets or the goals that you've set for yourself. We do have a fantastic budgeting sheet on our website. It is an Excel sheet, but it's very comprehensive. You can track your spending and you can actually measure your own spending against this healthy sample budget, or you can tweak the healthy sample budget and measure your own spending against your own spending goals. Before we dive in, before we dive further into budgeting, I just kind of want to share a little story about how recently, this is a little tiny example of how having a budget can help you in your financial life. So recently during a one-on-one appointment, a young woman was talking to me about, not knowing when it's okay to spend money and when it's not okay to spend money. And I shared this example with her. The other week, was last week actually, I was running late for work and I hadn't packed my lunch yet. And I'm like, you know what? I will just get something at the hub so I can run out the door and get there. And then I stopped for a second and thought about my budget. It was the end of the month. Here at Penn State, we get paid monthly. So the budget at that point was a little bit scarce. And I said, you know what? I actually don't have that money in my budget to spend on lunch at the hub. Let me just pack a sandwich really quick. So I put that sandwich together and ran out the door, and I didn't have to think about spending money at the hub on lunch. But that's a small example of how your budget can help you make these choices in the day to day, week to week. Having a budget will give you a good understanding of your finances. And like I said, when it's okay to spend money versus when maybe you shouldn't spend money and you should go ahead and pack yourself a lunch. So, another thing that will probably be changing about our budgets is our income. So we might need to refresh our income as well. Our healthy sample budget is based on your net income, not your gross income. So if you take your salary offer after graduation and divide it by 12, you might find yourself in a bad way pretty quickly. So we want to make sure that we are building our budgets based off of our net income. Our gross income is what we get before taxes and deductions are taken out. So if you have a salary offer from a company that you're going to be working with shortly, that would be your gross pay, that offer. Your net pay is what you're actually getting, like what's landing in your bank account after taxes and deductions have been accounted for. So your net pay is what you actually have to work with. And for that reason, it's important that you're building your budget based on your net pay. So I have a question for you guys. I would like to know how much you think we should estimate for taxes and deductions. So I'm going to send out a poll to see what you think. How much of our gross income do you think we should estimate for taxes and deductions? Okay, so it looks like we have, oh, we're still answering a little bit. Most of us at this point are saying between 15 to 25%. And a smaller portion of us are saying between 25 and 35%. So it actually is 25 to 35%. So that's a big chunk of change, right? That's a third of our income. Imagine if you got your salary offer, like I said earlier, and took that and divided it by 12 and started planning your monthly expenses. Imagine if you made choices regarding where to live, what to drive, what to eat, how to live your life based on your gross pay instead of your net pay, when in reality, you're going to have about 30% or a third less than your gross pay. Doing this calculation, taking your gross pay and turning it into a net pay estimate can help you look at salary offers in a more realistic way to say, okay, this is the money that I'm going to have to spend in this city. So when we are making a new budget, another thing we have to think about is prioritizing our spending. And Kyra is going to talk to us about how she prioritizes her spending.
Hello, everyone. Tracking your wants and your needs is so important. After graduation, you have a lot more responsibilities and more bills to pay, and you need to make sure that the budget that you've created will cover all of your needs and hopefully a little bit of your wants. So I have a question for you all, and I'd like it if you could write in the chat something that you bought this week or last week that was a want and something that you bought that was a need. And while those chats come in, I'll continue explaining the difference between a want and a need. So things that you need is housing. Maybe you need to pay your rent. You need transportation. That transportation could be in the form of a car or a bicycle. And things that you want could be video games, subscription services, and maybe eating out with friends. You definitely need food, but you don't need to buy Chick-fil-A every day. One of my favorite examples for me personally is that I always say I need my Amazon Prime. And I do need it because it's where I get my textbooks from and where I get majority of my school supplies. However, once I graduate, probably won't need textbooks, and I could maybe wait a little longer and be more patient when I want a package. And so paying that Amazon Prime won't be necessary anymore. I'm seeing some things in the chat. And you guys pretty good examples. A want is soup from the hub, bagel, going out to eat with friends, a lot of food. Need are rent, utilities, and things that you need every day that you can't go without. One of the important reasons that you need to figure out what you want and what you need is so that you are better prepared to negotiate your salary. Negotiating your salary can sometimes be scary for people, or it can be a topic that no one has ever heard of. So if you guys have anything that comes to mind when you hear negotiating your salary, write that in the chat as well and tell me, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you think you'd be prepared for? Or is that something that's very scary and you don't even want to think about it right now? When you're negotiating your salary, you're not just negotiating money. You're also negotiating what your work conditions would be, what retirement plans that employer offers, how many vacation or sick days you have, and if there's any potential achievement. If there's any raises, what would need to be completed, and how you could qualify for those raises. Most employers do expect you to negotiate your salary because this could be the chance of picking up extra money that you don't want to leave on the table. As you can see in this graph, what you begin making at your first job dictates what you'd be making later. And so it's important to understand how to prepare to negotiate your salary and what tips would be necessary. And what tips? I have some tips for you that could help you be better prepared so that you'd have more money in the future. The first one is to research market salaries. It's important to know what people with your experience level are making and where they're making it. Perhaps with my experience, I wouldn't be making as much money in Pennsylvania as I would in New York City. So it's important to research what's going on in that field and in your area. Prioritize your negotiating points. This compares to the needing and the wanting. What do you need? What do you want? Know yourself, know your skills, know your skill set, know what you can accomplish and what you can bring to a team. And practice how to express your views, practice how to express your values, and practice how to sell yourself so that you can ultimately secure the offer that you're looking for.
Almost forgot to unmute myself. Thanks, Ukaira. Hopefully we're all feeling a little bit more confident about the ability to negotiate our salary. And I'll just tack on to what Ukaira said. Everyone should negotiate. Everyone should try and advocate for themselves and negotiate their salary, even out of college. Another important and perhaps intimidating topic is investing. We already talked about the importance of an emergency fund, but what happens when you've built your emergency fund? You might not necessarily want to keep throwing money into your savings account, earning less than 1% in interest. So this is where investing comes in, and we're going to unpack it here in the next few slides. But first, let's look at 3 different people and their investing journeys. First, we have Jess. Jess learns the importance of saving early and often. So at age 25, she's built her emergency fund and she starts to focus on investing. She invests $5,000 a year starting at age 25. But then at the age of 35, maybe something crazy happens in her life and she can no longer continue to invest her $5,000 a year. Let's say she has twins or something and she's focused her money there. So between the age of 25 and 35, Jess has invested $5,000 a year. She's invested only $50,000 of her own money. But in retirement, which in this example, we're going to use age 65. At age 65, she has a little over $600,000. Next, we have Talia. Talia has maybe some excuse of why she can't start saving earlier or saving or investing earlier. So she waits to start investing until age 35. But like Jess, she also invests $5,000 a year. She doesn't stop after 10 years. She keeps going all the way until retirement at age 65. So Talia has invested in total $150,000 of her own money. But in the end, she actually has less than Jess, who's only invested $50,000 of her own money. What happens if Talia wouldn't have stopped? Well, Nate happens. So Nate, he learned the importance of saving and investing early on and started at age 25 investing $5,000 a year all the way up until age 65. That's 40 years of investing $5,000 a year. So he has invested quite a bit of his own money, $200,000, but look at how much he has in retirement, over $1 million. This is magical, right? I still look at examples like this and it's just mind blowing, even for me, someone who lives and breathes and works in financial literacy. But this is realistic. This is the power of compound interest visually. This example that we're seeing here is based on an 8% annual return on investment. And in the S&P 500, historically, the annual return on investment has been between 9 to 10% on average. So this example here might even be a little bit conservative, but it is totally realistic. And so I just want to say, like, while money doesn't grow on trees, it can grow when you save and invest it wisely. And the earlier that you start, the better off that you are. Time is on your side as a soon-to-be graduate. So we know saving and investing is important. How can we make this happen for ourselves? How can we be a Nate, right? So when it comes to investing for retirement, you'll likely have a few different options after graduation. There are IRAs, which are individual retirement accounts. Anyone can open one of these. These are tax advantaged accounts that you can use to save and invest for retirement. There is the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. We'll talk about the differences between these accounts in a minute. But the IRA in general is a retirement account, but up to $10,000 can be withdrawn from that account to buy your first home. There are also employer-sponsored plans. We've probably all heard of the 401k, but there's different versions of the 401k out there for different types of companies and industries. And they all kind of work similarly to the 401k. So there's also the 403b. This is for employees in public schools and other tax exempt organizations. There's the 457b. This is for state and local government employees. The TSP or Thrift Savings Plan is specifically for federal employees. And again, all of those kind of work similarly to the 401k. They just have different names. The pension, however, is a little bit different. Pensions these days seem to be aging out, but if you do have access to a pension, it works differently than the 401k in that you put a certain amount of money in monthly to receive a certain amount of like guaranteed income in retirement. So what your monthly income in retirement is, if you have a pension, will be based on your income and your years of service. So for both IRAs and employer-sponsored plans, you want to be taking advantage of both of these avenues of saving for retirement if possible. So let's look more closely at the differences here. So for the IRA, the individual, or you as the individual, sets up the account. You will choose if you want the traditional or the Roth account, and you'll put money into it. That money will be invested and it will be tax advantage. For the 401k, your employer creates the account and they may contribute. oftentimes your employer will offer a match. So if they offer a match, you want to be sure that you're taking advantage of that. For example, if your job offer says your employer will offer a 5% match to your 401k, what that means is that they will put in 5% of your paycheck into your 401k, and you'll put in 5% of your paycheck to your 401k. So in total, if that's your situation with the 5% match, you would have 10% each month going into your 401k, but only 5% is something that you've contributed. So a good general rule of 401ks is that if there's a match on the table, you always want to take advantage of that. Not doing so would be leaving free money on the table, and we don't want to do that. So for both the IRA and the 401k, you have the potential for investment growth, you've got wonderful tax advantages, and you have the ability to grow your wealth as you save for retirement. So I had mentioned that there's the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. They are similar in ways, but they also have some pretty big differences. So let's kind of look at those. With the traditional IRA, you will put money in from your paycheck before tax. So you'll put money in before you pay tax on it. That money is able to grow in the investment account, tax deferred, and you won't have to pay income tax on that money until you take it out at retirement. So that might look like kind of paying yourself a salary in retirement, and you pay yourself your gross income, it gets taxed, and then you've got your net income, right? So a great thing about the traditional IRA is that any money that you put in will actually reduce your taxable income in the year that you put it in. So if you put $5,000 into your traditional IRA this year, your taxable income will be reduced by $5,000 this year. The Roth IRA is kind of the opposite. So you put money into the Roth IRA after having paid tax on it. That money is still going to grow tax-free. And then when you take it out at retirement or after age 59 and a half, you don't have to pay any tax at all. So that's a great thing, right? Your money goes in after you've already paid your tax bill, you've settled up, it can grow, and you can take it out tax-free. So I think I mentioned this already, but I do want to say when you put money into an IRA, it should specifically be for retirement. You can take it out penalty-free after age 59 and a half. I did mention a few slides ago that you are able to use up to $10,000 of money in your IRAs to buy a home, a first home. It has to be a first home. So that's an option as well. But other than taking money out to purchase a first home, this money should specifically be for retirement after age 59 and a half. This year, the yearly limit to contribute to an IRA is $6,500. And the reason that there's a yearly limit is because these are wonderful tax advantages. The government has to set some kind of limit because they do want their tax money, right? So another big piece of our budget after graduation likely will be our student loan payments. And Kyra is going to jump in again and talk to us about our education expenses and how we can go about paying these things back.
Well, I'm sure that we all know not everyone who graduates is going to follow the same timeline. Some of us will be going to work full time, others of us are planning to go to graduate school. And whatever that is, loans is something that do need to be paid, and it's something that you should consider. So if you fit in the category of you graduated, you're done with school, and now you're looking for a job, federal student loans need to be paid after a 6-month grace period. So you have 6 months to include this in your budget, to make an account with your loan servicer, and to use a loan stimulator tool like a calculator so that you can figure out how long it would take to make that payment or how long it would take to completely pay off that loan, depending on what your minimum payment is. If you have a private student loan, log on to your private loan provider and try to figure out how much you would need monthly to pay off that loan in a reasonable time frame. Be sure to reach out to these people before they contact you, add it to your budget, and be proactive when it comes to trying to pay these loans. If you are in the other category, which means that you are interested in continuing your education and going to grad school after you graduate, there are also some resources or avenues that you can take that would help with paying that tuition off. One of these is a fellowship. So fellowships are competitive programs that you can apply to. Some of them can help cover tuition costs. They can also be used to provide living or to give living expenses. And the next one is an assistantship. This is like a teaching assistant or research assistant where you would be helping someone in your field. This is a great way to get experience while you're still in school. Some of these can help you pay tuition, and it's going to be a resume builder no matter what. An employer tuition reimbursement is when your employer offers to reimburse you the tuition that you paid for the classes that you've passed. A popular example is like what Amazon or FedEx do when they allow their employees to take classes, and then once that semester is over, they would reimburse them. And the last option that we have here is scholarships and grants. This is money that you do not need to pay back. These are not loans. This is basically free money. And they are given based off academic merit, financial need. And some of these criteria are very broad, which means that anyone can apply to them. Other times they're very specific, and that lowers the amount of applicants, but also improves your chances. If those are able to help you in a small way, then I suggest that you take them, but tuition is not cheap. And like Ali mentioned earlier, your diploma is a very expensive piece of paper. So as you continue, there may be a chance that you need to take out more loans. If you are looking to get a graduate unsubsidized loans, you can get one from FAFSA. There's no credit check, but your annual limit is going to be $20,500. And that will be in addition to whatever loans you've taken out in your undergraduate career. So there is a limit on how many FAFSA loans you can take out. And once you have reached the aggregate limit, then FAFSA will no longer give you loans. If you need more money to pay for your tuition, then you can research and look into a Graduate Plus loan. This is a direct plus loan application, and it does require a credit check. There's no annual limit other than the cost of attendance, which means that you cannot take out more loans than you need to pay your tuition. And there is a limit, but it's a very high limit. And so most of the time you would be able to not have to worry about reaching it. When you go to school, your loans will remain in deferment until you've enrolled in 6 or more credits. So this means that your grace period is offered once per loan. If you graduated and you took off 3 months and then you went to school and you graduated again, you would only have an additional 3 months. You would not have the 6 months again after graduating from grad school.
So how we manage our debt, how we manage our student loans is reflected in our credit score. So it's important that, when we graduate, we're working on managing our student loans in a way that allows us to pay them back. But when it comes to your credit score is basically like your financial GPA. It can range from 300 to 850, and anything above about 700 is typically seen as good. Maintaining a good credit score is important for a few reasons. The first is that it's easier to rent an apartment with a good credit score. And I know probably around State College, student apartments might not be checking your credit score at this point, but I'm telling you, as soon as you graduate and go and try and rent a nice place to live, that landlord will absolutely want to check your credit score. Your credit score is a good indicator of how financially responsible you are. And of course, a landlord is going to want someone who is financially responsible living in their place. It's also cheaper to borrow money for those of us who are thinking about buying homes or cars after graduation. A good credit score is going to give us a better interest rate when we go to borrow money for the bigger things that we need to pay for. And some employers even will check your credit score. So you might be more likely to get a job if you have a better credit score. If you're someone who's going into maybe like some type of finance or accounting role, definitely be cognizant of your credit score. It is easy to check your credit score on something like creditkarma.com. What I love about Credit Karma specifically is that it will not only show you what your score is, like what your actual number is, but it will also show you all the different factors that make up a credit score in general and how you are doing in each of those areas. So it can give you some things to work on as well, which I think is neat. A lot of mobile banking apps will also show you your credit score. So that's a great way to get access to it as well. If you do have one of those banks that shows you your credit score each month. If you want to dig a little deeper or suspect that something is wrong with your credit score, like it's maybe lower than you think that it should be, you can pull your credit report that will contain all of your current credit accounts and activity, up to 10 years of your past credit accounts and activity. So you would want to go ahead and check and make sure everything on there on your credit report is accurate. You can pull your credit report for free at annualcreditreport.com. You get one free report each year from each of the credit bureaus. So in the span of a year, you can get one free report from Equifax, one free report from Experian, and one free report from TransUnion. So you actually can get 3 free credit reports each year. So if you remember the financial wellness chart that we looked at the beginning, it talked about having security over your present and your future finances. Insurance and staying appropriately insured is a great way to protect yourself, not only currently, but also in the future. There are lots of different types of insurance out there. Some of it is required, like car insurance is required if you have a car, but some of it is voluntary. And you kind of have to pick and choose if you want to spend the money up front on insurance to protect yourself in the future if or when something does happen. For you soon to be graduates who are potentially moving from a parent's health insurance plan to your own health plan through your employer, take some time to, look into and understand your health insurance. Check out your deductibles. How much are you going to have to pay out of pocket before your insurance kicks in? Check out your premiums. How much are you going to have to pay on a monthly basis out of your paycheck? And of course, check and see what's covered by your insurance and where you can go to the doctor if you get sick. Rental insurance is another big one. If you rent an apartment and something goes horribly wrong in that apartment, like maybe your upstairs neighbor floods their bathtub and it starts running down into your apartment, and by a horrible stroke of luck, your laptop is sitting right where the puddle came down. If you have renter's insurance, your insurance company will cover and replace your personal belongings, anything that gets damaged. Typically, renter's insurance is pretty cheap and it tends to be a good investment. The idea of insurance really is the idea of mitigating risk. It's paying a little bit of money up front so that if or when things go bad, you're protected. So it is kind of up to you to decide what you want to use your money to protect in the form of insurance. So that is all we had for you today. Like I mentioned earlier, please reach out if you could use some personalized financial guidance or are interested in taking advantage of any of our other free services. Our website again is financialliteracy.psu.edu. And we just want to thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar. Remember, we are here to help you on your journey to financial wellness.